Welcome to Wednesday night at Hope. We've been in a series called The Laid Down Life, and tonight our subject and topic is going to be about, it's more of a marketplace tone, and we're talking about what's your assignment in life. All of us have a purpose to glorify and honor God, but all of us have been given an assignment. So if I look around the room, I see real estate agents, I see a few business owners, I see some project managers, I see some salespeople that are on commission. I see some stay-at-home moms. I see a lot of people around this room where, when I talk about your assignment, that's what we're talking about, is what is the thing that God has assigned you to do for this season. So we are going to talk about the laid down life and what does it look like to glorify and honor God on your assignment. How many of y'all know when I say when you've got an assignment, you know what your assignment is? Okay. For some of you, it's even just, some of you are raising godly kids and you were not raised in a godly home. And that's your assignment, is I am fighting uphill to try to do something I didn't see done for me. Some of you are trying to be the first marriage in your family to stick together, or you're trying to be the first person to get financially free. Or, you have an assignment that God has given you where you feel like this is my assignment in life. And so the title of my talk tonight is called Thickskin, Softheart. Thickskin, Softheart. And the reality is that far too many people in our society have thin skin and a hard heart. That makes sense? So by trade, I was in leadership management, and I was a leadership development director for a big company for a long time, and I still do some consulting stuff. And so on the spectrum of like Holy Spirit preacher and motivational TED talker, like tonight's gonna slant a little more this way from me, so I ask for your forgiveness in advance if you're like, wow, that didn't seem like the most spiritual talk at church. We're talking marketplace stuff tonight, so I'm taking your permission to get into it. So thick skin, soft heart. I got a picture of a camel up here. A camel is a mammal that actually has some of the thickest skin of any animal that exists. And part of it is because camels live in extremely arid, hot climates. And they go on long journeys, and in order for a camel to find rest in the desert, God gave them the thickest skin of a mammal, and particularly on the fronts of their legs and the back of their legs, so that when they sit down, they can find a place of rest in the heat of the desert. If you're going to do great things for God and you're going to rock the assignment that God has given you, you have to have thick skin, because I've found very few people in life who've achieved their destiny without going through a long desert in the first place. There's almost always a desert before your destiny, and you have to be equipped with thick skin to get through what God has called you to do. It's throughout the Bible. You look at Nehemiah, go build the wall. He had opposition. He had naysayers. He had people in his ear. Job, his assignment was to live through suffering, and his own family's cursing him. Like, there's all these stories. Jesus, opposition. There's opposition between you and your destiny. When God gives you a destiny, how many of y'all know that there's very often a desert between you and that place? And some of you are in the middle of that desert right now, and you're like, yeah, I need some camel skin right now. Let's get into it. Matthew, if we go to the next slide, we're going to take a look at, in the book of Matthew, chapter 5, that's you. You are the salt of the earth. But if the salt has lost its taste, how shall its saltiness be restored? It is no longer good for anything except to be thrown out and trampled under people's feet. You are the light of the world. A city set on a hill cannot be hidden, nor do people light a lamp and put it under a basket, but on a stand, and it gives light to all in the house. It's Jesus talking to you. On your assignment, you're the salt, you're the light. In your workplace, in your family, in your community, it's you. In the same way, let your light shine before others so that they may read your inspirational Facebook posts, so that they may hear your good ideas, so that they may hear your strong opinions. No. Jesus is saying, so that the world will see your good works and give glory to your Father who's in heaven. They're going to look at you and what you're doing in life and say, that glorifies God. How many of y'all want your work tomorrow morning when you go to work at Atlas Security or Springfield Striping or the other places I see represented here, when you go in to be like, that person is a light, and I see it in the way that they work. If you go to the message, the next slide, it says it like this: let me tell you why you're here. This is why you're at your assignment. You are here to be salt seasoning that brings out the God flavors of this earth. If you lose your saltiness, how will people taste godliness? If you get thin-skinned and hard-hearted, how will your coworkers and family see godliness? You've lost your usefulness and will end up in the garbage. Here's another way to put it. You're here to be light, bringing out the God colors in the world. God is not a secret to be kept. We're going public with this, as public as a city on a hill. If I make you light bearers, you don't think I'm going to hide you under a bucket, do you? I'm putting you on a light stand. Now that I've put you there on a hilltop, on a light stand, shine. Keep an open house. Be generous with your lives. By opening up to others, you'll prompt people to open up with God. Most of the time when people find Jesus, they first found a follower of Jesus on the way, and that is you. So the next slide is this: thick skin, soft heart. And I want to talk about 5 very practical things where in my assignments in life, and they've changed season by season, I've lost my flavor. I've lost my light at moments. I've wanted to quit. I'd wanted to give up. I've wanted to say, too much, God. I'm tapping out. Ask someone else to do this. Anyone else ever been there? Some of y'all are there right now. So I'm going to give 5 things very practical. And this is, again, it might feel more hard-hitting than your average church message, but I just like to keep it real. Are you guys ready for that? Yes. All right. Number 1, don't internalize disrespect from people that you don't respect. You're going to do something great for God. You're going to have people in your ear telling you why you shouldn't be doing it. You're going to have people saying, what are they thinking? Why are they doing that? Why are they taking that risk? You'll have taken a step of faith. I'm looking in the room and I see certain people who I know in the last year have quit a high-paying job that put them on the road all the time to take a lower-paying job so they could be home with their kids more. You think that individual didn't have people in their ear at their old company saying, what are you doing? Why are you doing that? That doesn't make any sense. Are you foolish? You will, if you're going to do great things for God in your life, you will hear the disrespect and the boo birds from people around you. Consider the source. And I'm not talking about being disrespectful or overtly. I'm saying, when I say it's somebody that you respect, it's somebody you want to be like. I want to be like my dad. So when my dad has an opinion on my life decisions, he has my ear. When people in your circle that you don't want to be like and are not running the same race you're on have opinions about what you're doing, listen, but don't let it get internalized into your heart. You know what I'm saying? You ever had someone's voice bouncing around in your head unnecessarily? And you're like, wait a minute. Is that somebody that I want to be like? Is that someone that I am following after as they follow Christ? Because if it's not, I would say be careful about what you allow to get into your spirit about the words that they're saying about what you're doing. Does that make sense? You are on an uncommon journey. And for those of you who are leaders, leadership is lonely. And you will feel that at a deep level sometimes. And you'll be the subject of other people's comparison. The next slide is this. Eleanor Roosevelt, I think. No, never mind. Hang on. Psalms, David, same thing. It was Abraham Lincoln who said, don't believe everything you read on the internet. Am I right? Psalms 1:1. How blessed is the man who does not walk in the counsel of the ungodly, nor stand in the path of sinners, nor sit in the seat of scoffers. Notice the journey that started with you internalizing words from the scoffers, that you started listening to their counsel. You're on your assignment from God, you're doing it, all of a sudden you're listening and you're like, wait, what did they say? Maybe they're right. Maybe I should have listened. Then you stop walking, then you start standing in the path of sinners. And it's not before long that you start sitting in the seat of the scoffer, being that same boo bird, being that same negative, critical person who's criticizing other people on their assignment. Just wait and see what happens. Oh, this won't work out for them. Is this making sense? You go from listening to ungodly counsel to standing in the path of sinners to sitting in the seat of the scoffer. Does that make sense? The scoffer is someone who's arrogant, haughty, foolish, undisciplined. I'm not saying if, you do have scoffers in your tribe, in your circle, in your family, in your neighborhood. Don't listen to their counsel. Eleanor Roosevelt said it like this. There's a better transition. She said this: great minds discuss ideas, average minds discuss events, and small minds discuss people. And the small-minded people in your life do nothing but sit around and talk about other people. Because that is the cheapest fodder for the seat of the scoffer, to sit around and criticize everything that someone else did. You know what I mean? It is easy to be a critic. And if you take any steps of faith, and if you leave the herd to lead the herd, you will start taking shots from the scoffers. So be ready when they do, and don't internalize the things that they're saying. Number 2, don't allow success to get to your head, and don't let failure get to your heart. You will have seasons of your life where you have great success on your assignment. Things are clicking, things are working, the money's coming in, the praises are coming, like you're getting the promotion, things are going great. And you will have moments when it is not going well, and you'll feel like you're failing, and maybe you are failing, and you're like Job, you're like, God, why have you left me? Like, you will have those seasons as well. In order to have the thick-skinned, soft-hearted person doesn't allow success to get to their head, but they don't allow failure to get to their heart. The thin-skinned person starts to believe that just because they're successful in one thing, that they believe the way they're doing everything is right, and they believe they'll never trip up or stumble. They get arrogant, they get cocky, and their heart slowly begins to harden towards other people and the voice of God because they allowed success to get to their head. Or you in a season where you have failure get to your heart, where your failures and shortcomings allow you to believe lies of the enemy in your heart about who you are, that you're a failure, you're messed up, you're never gonna do it, and it robs you of your courage to follow God in the next season of life because you allowed the failure to get to your heart. On your journey, you will have success, you will have failure. The thick-skinned, soft-hearted person doesn't allow those things to get to them. Both of those things came to pass. Your success will pass, your failure will pass, and God will operate in seasons of your life. And some ways, sometimes it's going your way, and other times it won't be. But if you have thick skin and a soft heart, you won't get derailed in those moments. Separate who you are from what you do, and allow God to love on who you are while your assignment, you're just doing what you do. Sometimes it flows, sometimes it doesn't. Number 3, don't compete with those who don't share your definition of success. For the men in the room, this is probably even more, we're basically all like still 6th grade kids who are wrestling on the playground trying to prove our dominance. Everything's a competition, and so we tend to compete at games that don't matter. If you compare yourself to someone who's got a different definition of success, you'll lose heart along your journey and your assignment. And comparison is the thief of joy, because someone is always further down the road than you are, always, and you'll always see it. Other people have a different definition of success, and you got to understand that. You are going to say yes to God in some areas, and every yes you give to the Lord on your assignment is a no to other things. The person who took a lower paying role so they could stay home with their kids might go on a less amazing vacation this year, but they're going to spend more time at home with their family. They define success as, I'm going to be a great dad, right? So in that moment, when you see in your Instagram feed your old coworkers going on a killer vacation, comparison creeps in. And it's like, well, if I would have never done that, you know what I'm saying? Like, anyone else relate to this, or am I the only superficial one in here? Okay. You start comparing your life to other people who are running a different race. And God will call you to run your race. And you define clearly in your head and your heart, what does success look like for the assignment God has given me? And I'm going to go after that thing with everything I've got. And if the scoffers and my cousin and my parents and whoever else don't get it, and they're going after a different race and a different prize, I'm not going to compare myself to them in one of my weak moments and one of their strong moments and then start to second guess God's call on my life. Does that make sense? I used to travel a lot for my job, and I got status with American Airlines. If you didn't think I was superficial and shallow, you're about to get a real look into who I am. So I traveled a lot. So I get some frequent travelers, and I had status with American Airlines. So, airlines, they like gamify like you're traveling. The more you travel, the more points you get. Then you go from gold to platinum to silver to elite, and it's like you're trying to win stupid games and get stupid prizes out of this deal. But what happens sometimes is when you get status, you're the first person on the plane. And how many frequent travelers you get to the airport, and all those group 1 people think their stuff don't stink? They're like, I'm in group 1. So I travel all the time. I'm diamond platinum status. I don't know if you guys all noticed that, but I'm morning, So it's this comparison game at the airport, and then you might get upgraded to first class. You guys ever had this moment where you walk through first class on an airplane and you're like, what does that guy do for a living that he can afford a first class ticket? It's like, he doesn't even look like he bathed this morning, but he gets the extra leg room? Okay. And they put him on there first so that you can smugly in first class look at all the commoners passing you by. You know what I'm saying? So I had status with American Airlines, and I was the guy who's like, I'm group one, see you on the plane, losers, And I was that guy, sorry. I changed jobs to stay home more, and I lost my status. And I remember the first time I went to an airplane, and it was like, Mr. Williams, we don't know who you are. Here's group 7 boarding pass with all the commoners, And this sounds so dumb and shallow, I get it. But I remember in that moment, walking through the first class thing with all of these frequent travelers who got all the perks and all the free food and all the extra stuff. And I remember thinking, I had a jealousy moment in my head, and it's stupid and shallow. But in that moment, I had to remember that's not my definition of success. God prompted me and assigned me to be a better dad over this next six years of my life. My boys are 10 and 12. Some of you parents, you're already empty nesters. You're like, you know how quick that next 6 to 8 years of my life is going to go by, and then they're gone. My assignment right now is be a great dad. And so the status I have with my sons is more important than the status I have with American Airlines. And in those moments of comparison, it's important for me to understand, no, I chose this because God called me to this, and I'm not running a rat race of life just to win and find out I'm a rat for winning it. You know what I mean? Win the right race in life because you know what God has called you to do. Next slide is this. Thomas Merton, he was a Catholic monk. But he said, people may spend their whole lives climbing the ladder of success only to find they reached the top and the ladder was leaning against the wrong wall. Know what wall God has called you to and climb that ladder. And when you see other people on a different ladder, don't get jealous. That's their race, not yours. But if you have thin skin and a hard heart, you're going to let that get to you. You know what I mean? Okay. Number 4 is this. Value always gets paid, so be nice. If you walk out of this, the economy works on supply and demand because we're Americans. I was hoping to get a bald eagle screech or something. I don't know what I was looking for. America. I think God wants you to have money. And I think if you're faithful with it, God's going to bless it. The faithful people tend to get more because God can trust them with the wealth. And I want to be that type of person. There's nothing wrong with that. I don't think Christianity is a vow to poverty. Value, thank you, I appreciate that. She's like, I hear that. If you walk out of here tonight and you see a penny on the ground between here and your car, most of you probably won't pick it up. Some will, but most won't. Why? Because you see pennies kind of everywhere. And thanks to inflation, it's worth even less than a penny was 6 years ago, right? And it's common. You kind of see that everywhere. You're not going to stop and pick it up. If you walk out of here to your car and you see a $20 bill laying on the ground and it's 50 yards away, you're going to go way out of your way to be like the $20 bill is dancing in the breeze. You're going to stop it. Hang on. You're going to go get it. Why? Because you don't see that often. And it's got value. When it comes to the marketplace and your assignment and your place of work or the school that you volunteer in or what you're doing, you might be coaching your kids' Pee-wee football team. It's your assignment for this season. Be the $20 bill. Be rare. Be uncommon. And most of our society is very thin-skinned. They get their feelings hurt way too easily. They take everything personal. They don't have grit. They don't have stick-to-itness. They're complainers. We're whiners. We are becoming a very whiny, negative society because we're thin-skinned. And the second I disagree with you, I'm going to tell you what I think about my opinion. That's what we've become as a society, and it's not pretty. It is also very common for people to be hard-hearted. I am who I am. I'm going to be me. That's the mantra of a lot of people in America is well, I'm just being me. It's who I am and you can't change me. Do you hear the pride and hard-heartedness in that attitude? Yeah. Sometimes in order for you to do what God has called you to do, you being you is the last thing that you need to be successful. Can I get an amen? It is uncommon to be someone who's pliable. It is uncommon to be someone who has an attitude of service. It is uncommon for you to be nice to people that you don't know. It is uncommon for you to be kind and gracious to people you disagree with. It is uncommon for you to work hard when everyone else is deciding to quiet quit and be like anti the company and anti your boss. And like you think that your boss got like promotion dust like sprinkled on him overnight. Like, what's up with this guy? I don't know. Maybe he's a human. You know what I mean? Like, so we get these attitudes that are so common in the marketplace today. And then we wonder why we're not getting picked up by our boss. We wonder why we're not getting the promotion. We wonder why God's not blessing us. Because we're the penny, and it's common, and people like that are everywhere. Be uncommon. Be the $20 bill in your assignment. Be someone who is uncommon and stands out against the grain. Be the salt, be the light. Why? So people will see your good works and glorify God in heaven. If hard times cause you to become hard-hearted, you'll lose your interest in humility and sensitivity towards other people in the market. As business owners, or several in the room, you'll lose your intuition. You'll lose your feel. You'll lose the care for your customers. You're gonna start getting hard-hearted towards your own employees and coworkers. Like that happens when you have thin skin. And I would say this, you never know who you're talking to. How many of y'all have had business deals or opportunities come to you through happenstance or chance, through some random person that you happen to run into? In that moment, I hope that the fact that you were nice made a difference on why that door opened for you. And the reality is your name will be talked about in rooms that you're not in, with powerful, influential people who will decide which doors will or will not be opened up to you in the future in the market. And your reputation, sometimes in snapshot moments with people, will be what will open the door that could take you into the destiny God has called you into. So be nice along the way. Last one is this. And we can have the panel come on up here. But number 5 is this: faithfulness attracts the favor of people, but humility attracts the favor of God, and both matter. Both matter. When Jesus was young, it said he grew in favor with God and man. Your favor in the marketplace matters because it will be an open door to give you more influence in the marketplace and assignment that you've been given. Faith is when you take steps based on the track record of someone else, right? Like, I went and played golf with my dad today. It was awesome. And I said, I'll be by your place at 12:15. And at 12:15, his golf clubs were out front. We hopped in the truck. I took steps of leaving my house on time because the faith I put in my dad to be ready to go on time. Simple example. But I had faith that he was going to do what he said he was going to do, so I did what I said I was going to do. I had faith in him. Does that make sense? We put faith in God because of his reputation, his character. Sarah and Abraham, she considered God faithful who had promised. That's why she did what she did, because the faith in the person. So faith is when you trust God, but faithfulness is when God and people can trust you. When you are faithful, people can make their decisions based on your word and what you said. Because if Courtney said it, then I know it's going to happen because she's a faithful person. You know what I mean? So become a faithful person, you'll earn the favor of people. But if you're a humble person, you'll earn the favor of God. And I would submit you want both in your life. The favor of God on your life and also the favor of people in your assignment. God resists the proud, but gives grace to the humble. That is still the way that it works. And a lot of times your success and failure can both harden your heart. God will resist the proud, but he'll give grace to the humble, pliable person over time. Take an interest in other people. Genuinely seek to serve your team and your customers. And if you become the person where your glory is your motive, you will meet the resistance of God on the work of your hand. Slide 13, and this is the last one. If we click forward one more, we'll wrap up here. Proverbs 3:3-4 says, "Let not steadfast love and faithfulness forsake you. Bind them around your neck. Write them on the tablet of your heart. So you will find the favor of God and good success in the sight of God and man." Last slide is just my camel again. It's a finally a reminder. Thick skin, soft heart. God's called you to something. You have an assignment. Get a business plan, get your, whatever the thing is that you're doing, make your plan, save the money, get your plan together, all those things. But in everything you're putting together to nail the assignment God's put on your life, don't forget 2 things: thick skin and a soft heart. Deal? Yeah.
Good job. Come on. It's yours. Yeah. How many of you guys know that there is kingdom principles to be lived out in the workplace? And I think what Drew just shared in this moment are just basic kingdom principles to succeed, to truly be that salt and light to the world. I mean, that's ultimately where we spend majority of our time, right, is out in the world. It's majority of our time is not spent in this building, unless you're me, of course. And so that is my job. And I'm moving on from there. Guys, we've got a great panel tonight. I want to maybe just introduce these guys really quickly. We have Peter and Sarah Ostapko over here, and I'm not going to even begin to tell a little bit of their story because I'm going to let them share it. And as you guys know, this is Drew Williams as well, and then Caleb A.G., good buddy. So I'm excited. I'm excited to talk through what this looks like. Tonight, I want to unpack a little bit. Pastor Josh, I would say probably like a month or two ago, mentioned this idea of purpose versus assignment. And I want to tease that out a little bit tonight. And I brought people up here on the panel who have lived a life of risk and lived a life of sacrifice and are no stranger to the desert places and are as no stranger to the favor of the Lord either. And so I wanted to kind of begin with a few questions tonight, but primarily Pastor Gary used to say, and I think probably still says, faith is spelled R-I-S-K. Faith is spelled R-I-S-K, and risk is associated over and over again. And risk is associated and will be associated over and over again with your assignment that the Lord has called you to do. And so when you think through your guys' life, like, can you give me an example of like what did stepping out of the boat look like? What did risk look like in your life when you feel that your assignment that the Lord had for you is changing? What did like even like bring out some of the emotional side of those things like too, because it's not risk is hard sometimes, right? So, Peter and Sarah, do you want to kick us off?
Oh, you want me to kick it off? Okay. Where do we start? I'll first just say this: God wastes nothing in your life. He's always taking what you're doing and he's weaving it into where you're going. There are no lost seasons or periods of your life. And I remember, like, I graduated college in 2008 with a degree in finance. And at the time the market collapsed, it was a very difficult time to go into what I was thinking I was going to go into, which was financial advising. I worked at a local bank that has since gone defunct. And I ended up getting an internship at Chase, card services in town with a finance degree. Was there for probably about 4 or 5 months. And then I was waiting for this other position with this insurance company that was a good, stable job. And I'm getting to a point with the story. I won't monopolize this whole thing. And I stayed at this position for a little while, longer than I wanted to, and then I worked for the news leader for a little while, and then finally the position opened up and I transitioned into it. But I remember like a year into this job, it was a good, comfortable job. I had a company car, I worked from my home, it was great. But after about a year, I was like, this is not what I was made to do in life. Like, it was just like, I had to do it. I had to provide. I had to start paying off my student loans. I had to do what I knew I needed to do at the moment. But I say all this because I was in insurance for 5 years, and then I was asked to join a lending company where I spent the last decade of my life in commercial lending and specialty boutique lending. And I can just now, at my point in this life, I'm 38 years old, I can look back over the last 15 years of my life and pinpoint relationships, conversations, experiences, just things that God taught me, that he was weaving just this beautiful tapestry of my life together, where now I'm old enough to look back and say, God, I see exactly what you were doing in every single one of those things in my life. Nothing is wasted. And so that's positioned us to where we are with just an expectation of where he has us going. And so I think it's important to really focus, or to really point to, like, the timing of that is going to be different. And I think the immediateness of our culture, especially for young people, is one of the most difficult things that we face, because the most difficult thing we can do right now is focus and block out the noise and compare. You talk about compare, you know, and so we're always looking to the left and to the right, especially when we're young. We feel like we're not where we should be. You're right where you should be. You're right. The only place you're ever going to be is right where you are. Yeah. And you learn from your past and you experience those experiences combined with the word and just his truth breeds wisdom, but you're always going to be in the moment. And if you even get too far ahead of yourself, you're just going to be thinking all the time about where you're going and what you're going to be doing, and then you're not going to be productive in the present. So just be faithful in today. And just, if you want to write a book, start with a sentence. Just be faithful in the day, and then watch what happens tomorrow, and then the next day, and then the next day. Yeah. I'll stop talking.
Yeah. Well, we should preface by saying you want to say why you're leaving your current job. That's a big part of that.
Is that public news?
I don't know. It is now.
I did. So I...
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Have you guys talked about this?
We were laughing in the back room. Drew and I were laughing. We were laughing because a third of this panel's basically going to be unemployed in 2 weeks. So we have all the reason to talk about marketplace. Yeah. So God is calling us. I mean, God. I'll just say it in a very short term because some of you know the story. God birthed something in us 6.5 years ago, and it's been a steady faithfulness each and every day. And there's been times where I've said, Lord, I want to go full speed. He's like, I got some more for you here. Yeah. I've learned that the most important thing most often we can do is wait patiently on the Lord. Wait patiently on the Lord, which means silence the noise. Take wisdom from counsel and from other people, yes, but take counsel from him. He reveals his truth and himself and his ways through his word. And quiet the noise and watch how God weaves in his story in and through you. And he gives you clarity and gives you peace. There will be people that love you so much that won't have a clue and understand why you're doing what you're doing. But if you're doing what you know you should be doing, you have to do it. Yeah. Because if you don't, you're going to be striving. This isn't a salvation issue. Like, God loves you. You're redeemed. Like, he calls you a child. But if you want fulfillment, if you want like that life of joy and true purpose and meaning, you're going to go through assignments that are going to suck. You're just going to.
Can you say that? I don't know.
You can say suck.
Oh, okay.
We're talking about marketplace, so you could say that today. But you're going to go through assignments that are just like, golly, this is brutal. Yeah. But then you're going to come to a point you're like, oh man, I know what this was for. Yeah. So so as of Friday next week, I'm unemployed.
Well, yeah.
Yes and no. Okay, yeah. We should probably provide context.
Would you go into that a little bit, and maybe both of you as well? So you said this has been something for 6.5 years in the making. You feel like 6.5 years ago, you felt like you had a word of the Lord to do something, and now 6.5 years later, you're quitting the day-to-day to really take a risk and to see what happens, But I think what I hear you saying is you have a word from the Lord. You have a conviction from the Lord that this is the call of what he has for you in this next season. This is your assignment. But take us through those 6.5 years a little bit, because it's not, I just know, I know without speaking for 40 minutes, I know that's hard, but take us through some of that emotion, because it's probably up and down through all that. Do you want to speak to that too, Sarah?
Yeah, I think we've been married for 17 years, and when he's... Yes.
I think we need to mute Peter's microphone.
And through those 17 years, I would say when he says quickly after college, when I remember when he told me, he's like, I am not cut out to be a finance guy. Why am I in finance? And I looked at him like, I could have told you that, but this is how we're going to pay the bills. And so, again, digging into that and that was, 15 years ago? And so in the last 6.5 years, really, the Lord put something in his heart. And I had to come along. It's been even a journey for me to get alongside him and for us to be on the same page in vision. And for me praying into what God had birthed in his heart to come alongside of him in unity, I would say that there's been many years of even that season. Me not understanding, me being quiet, me going to the Father and being like, is this of you? I love my husband, but I have some concerns. I'm fearful. I'm really fearful. Are we going to be able to live? Food, clothes, But this, I would say, you say call, I would say it was this deep burden for this hole in what he felt the marketplace among men. And it was that seed that was planted, and it wouldn't go away. It would not go away. And so that, coupled with who God made my husband to be, the gifts, the talents, the things he's put inside of him, it was then years of seeing that, and then seeing the vision, and seeing all of this kind of take place and go, wow, Lord, like, you're in this. And so 2 years ago, no, not even, last year, it feels like 2 years, but 6.5 years getting there, right? But last year, publishing a men's journal on faith, fatherhood, and work. We just had no idea. We just knew that we were supposed to do it. We were supposed to be self-publish this journal. But we had no idea what the next was going to be. It was just, this is the need.
Just faithful in the moment.
Yep, you need to do this.
I mean, we packaged and shipped up 2,000 of these things out of our house in the margins of life.
In the
before
margins
7 a.m.,
of our time in life.
Before 7 a.m. and
Yep.
after 9 p.m. I mean, because I'm not going to compromise the time with my family and my kids. So it's like faithful. You know how many times I wanted to give up? Be like, I'm tired.
It was a lot.
I want to just sit down and watch TV.
Yeah.
But like, there was something in me. It's like, I need to do this. And I want to make something really, really clear though. Like, risk isn't always picking up and going. Risk sometimes is staying. Risk sometimes is just forgiving. Risk sometimes is just opening up a door of conversation. It doesn't always have to be this grandiose, like, I'm going to completely just pivot and change course in my life. Risk, what it is, this is risk. It's a place of surrender, and you're posturing, and you say, God, this is me. I'm not clenching it anymore. I'm releasing it all to you. And I mean, that's what it is. And it looks differently for all of us. But we're all going to have I'll stop talking. We're all going to have inflection moments where God's going to say, okay, this is your Damascus Road moment, right? This is your Jacob wrestling moment. Like, what are you going to cling to me? You're going to really press in for what I have for you? Because if you do, it's an invitation from God to understand him more, to more intimately understand how much he uniquely cares about every detail and facet of your life. It's an abiding in him is what it is. And so he has that for all of us. For all of us, but we succumb to fear, we succumb to doubt, we listen to voices we shouldn't be listening to. So,
Sarah, so you mentioned like during those like few years, do you feel like there was a moment where the Lord just made it like really clear, or where there's a conversation, even for you on the side of like, I'm trusting fully in this man and the word that he's received?
Yeah. So I remember it took me actually to this last summer because he was holding on to the job. And for good reason. I mean, we both felt like this is the smart, responsible thing to do. We haven't got this clear, like, let's leave the job and let's just pursue this wholeheartedly. But I remember praying when I really started to ask the Lord, what is your will? Like, do you want us to step out in faith and take a risk with you, even if we don't have all the answers, even if there's unknown? And I just remember clear as day, yes. And I was like, okay. So remember, I was like, I need to talk to you. After the kids went to bed, and I said, you have my full support to put your resignation in with the bank, and I'm behind you. Because this is what the Father wants, and I don't have all the answers, but I want you to know that I'm with you. And I mean, sorry, I'm going to just say you cried, because you cry. You know, we cry all the time. So he
Is this a counseling session now? Is this?
No, this is our life. This is reality. This is our family at church.
Feel?
I know, we're not going to go into that. But with tears, he just said, thank you. Thank you for this, because I really needed to hear that. Because without that, I'm holding on. I said that in the summer, but it still took him up to 4 weeks ago to make that decision. But I just wanted him to know that I was behind him.
And then I got fearful, and she's like, okay, either like, and then a man that I admire, and he's spoken to me, he goes, Peter, your yes is yes or your no is no.
Yeah.
And I remember sitting there at my computer. It was on a Friday. It was right before a Labor Day weekend. And I'm sitting there, I type it up. I had it typed up the whole day. And I'm sitting there, And I walked away. I came back to it. I didn't put the person I was sending it to because I was like, in case I accidentally send it. I don't want it to go. No.
Some wisdom right there.
I go to my car. I leave. I'm driving. I'm going for a walk. I'm like intermittently crying throughout the day because I'm a little fearful. But I'm so sure that I need to do this.
Yeah.
And I finally just send the email. And I walk out and I just wept. God, I don't know, but I know that I know. And that's all that I need to know is that I know. Yeah. And it's different for us, but I want to say something that's really, really important here. If you're married, you do this together. Like, we do this together. When she came to me and said that, like, I needed that. And then she supported me in that. And then when I was fearful, she encouraged me in that. Yeah. And so this is as much a risk or a testimony to risk as it is to like a faithfulness and abiding in one another in a marriage where we do this together. Yeah. And that's a beautiful thing. So we got it all figured out.
No, we don't.
Yeah. Well, I think like that's the beauty of what I'm hearing is like you're like within the abiding, you're learning what to lay down and what to pick up. And in a moment, in a season, it's like my own wants. Like maybe what makes sense in the natural too, to keep a steady paycheck, to keep food on the table, to keep these things. But yet the laid down life is not a life of my own wants.
And
it is a life of abiding and trusting.
And that's honestly, friends, that's what God was working out of me. If it looks different, Sarah, for you this way, will I still not meet all your needs? Am I enough?
Yeah.
That was the heart of it.
Even if your life changes.
100%.
Yeah.
If it doesn't look the way it does today, will you still follow me in this?
That's good.
And it was that place for me. That he had to really work those deep-seated places that only he knew, my heart, right? Only he knew the things I was really holding on to. Like, I don't really want life to really change, even if you say it's going to change, Lord. You know what I mean? But it was working out those deep-seated things in my heart.
I love that.
This is the last thing I'll say, and then you can ask the questions for
you.
these guys. But I want to say something I think is very, very important. Like, I think so often we over, how do I say this? Like, following God is not an overly complex thing. But what's happened is we've all succumbed into the same way of doing it. So then when people step out, it just looks like, oh, what are they doing? What are they doing? And what's happened is, John Piper said this, it's like, if you taste so much of the world, like it becomes, I can't remember exactly what he says, like you're full on the things of the world. But the idea is like, Scripture is clear about so many different components of a laid down life. We read it all the time. We just don't want to like do it.
Yeah.
And it looks differently for all of us. I'm saying that clearly. But the world is crying out for followers of Jesus to live like followers of Jesus. They're crying out for people to be a light in a dark place in our workplaces and everywhere we go. Yeah. Like my chief lender is like, you're doing what? What are you doing? You're going to, really? Yeah, let me tell you about it. Wow. As I'm having conversations the last 2 weeks, people are like, wow.
Yeah.
I mean, just like, really?
Yeah.
Like, yeah. Why not?
Yeah.
Like I heard this John Tyson say this. He goes, if you don't want to believe what I believe, that's fine. But you're going to respect what I believe because I believe it through and through. And I just believe God is faithful. And I believe that he's seeking and he's looking for people to carry the light everywhere they go.
Yeah. Yeah.
So talk to these guys. They're doing it too.
Yeah, I was about to say, we do have other people on the panel. No, I love it. It's so good. I appreciate it. Well, I think I want to take the idea of you're mentioning, like what may seem foolishness to the world is actually is wisdom in the Spirit and faith in what the Lord is asking you to do. And what that that's a fundamental different set of values. Like that is we see things differently. And so what does it look like if we can just like speak really practically, what does it look like for people all of us in the room to lay our life down, following Jesus, picking up his values, and maybe in an environment that doesn't respect those same values? Does that make sense? Okay, I think, yeah.
I think I work, just in the marketplace, as we call it. Does anybody else call it that outside of the church?
Only
the
pastors do.
church call it the
It's like,
marketplace.
there's certain words that only-
I don't know.
My
I
favorite
work
one
in
is
a business, a company.
You just work.
Yeah, we do marketing and advertising. So
At a place?
at a place, and yeah. So this is not going to go good. So there's obviously things that go on and conversations that happen. I think everybody who's worked in the marketplace has seen that happen, where it's just like. But I think there's a marked difference when you set up very clear. I would say the common therapy word right now is boundaries. There's really clarity when you have a different spirit about you, that you carry yourself in a different way, and I think I would like to say that it's known of me what I believe, and it's known how I carry out that belief to everybody I work with. And I think that holy, because we're called to be holy, means set apart. It means to be different, to be unique, and that's what God calls himself, but he calls us to be holy as well. And there's this set apartness that we can be relevant but without compromise. Do you know what I'm saying? And I think there's a reality inside of church. I think sometimes we do try to overcomplicate things, and we bring in our big fat Bibles, and we try to maybe preach at people, or we try to, especially as we're sharing the gospel, or what we should be doing is every day sharing the gospel. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, I think sometimes people are like, my Bible says, there's kind of this like chapter book reference kind of thing. And I've had these conversations with people who do not at all believe what I believe. And we're talking about big issues. Like, I'm thinking back a couple of years ago when riots are hitting the streets and everybody's disagreeing about everything. And I have conversations where I was able to speak kingdom truth to these people, and they walk away there and they're like, they can't help it because it's sharper. It's like a scalpel, sharper than a two-edged sword. It cuts so sharp, and they are nodding and agreeing to things that they would say that they don't believe. Do you know what I'm saying? And there is this reality when you've hidden it inside of your heart that you can carry it into your workplace, and you can use it as just a force to speak straight to the heart of a person. And that, I believe, is true witnessing. That is what Jesus did over and over and over again, was he was just speaking truth, and he was bringing it right to the point.
Can I say something to testify for you that's so important about what you said? I've heard the saying, like, share the gospel at all costs, and when necessary, use words. I really believe we're at this point where we have to speak and use words. People of God need to speak up. And what you just said is a perfect testimony of that. Where like they watched the way that you lived, but then you said, no, guys, this is a different way to think about this. And you're becoming a peacemaker in that place because you're inserting truth. And so I love that.
Yeah.
Good. That's amazing.
Thanks. Yeah, I'd say that it's interesting. The Lord's been literally in the last weeks working in me. There's this reality of that. I would say just living that laid down life, and that's I won't say a passive thing, but it's not like I'm actively evangelizing. Do you know what I'm saying? That is me being Jesus in my office. Do you know what I'm saying? The thing that the Lord has been calling out in me more specifically lately is just that we are meant to also bring the truth in a more obvious way and share that. And so for me, practically, I'm sharing like devotionals with my team in a way that we've never had the gospel out in the open. Do you know what I'm saying? That it's like, it is a thing. I'm sending an email to everybody on the team. Hey, here's a verse. Here's a little devotional. And if you don't want to read it, that's fine. But here it is. And what I know is even the people who don't want to read it, it will change the atmosphere around them, whether they want it to or not. It'll change the kind of conversations we have that day. Whether anybody knows it or not, it'll change the way we treat one another. And so there's this stature that you carry, but then there's a reality that you have to bring it sometimes too. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So.
I love that.
You want to add?
And then I want to, Drew, I want to hear your thoughts as well. I believe, like, if you stay that consistent voice of truth in people's life, what I have found, like, personally, that in the moment where they need, when there's something that has happened in their life, they don't go to their best friend who may be in a lifestyle of not the best things. They're going to go to the person who has spoke some stability over their life, who needs some wisdom. And then that is the moment. And so I think, like, maybe my next question is, like, at what moment does it get actually very intentional and very specific? And it's not like, I love what you're doing. It's you say it's not evangelism. I think that's like relational evangelism, you know? But is there a moment where this becomes like an intercession moment, like to really truly share
They show
Jesus?
Up. I have the benefit of like managing and leading people, so I have like one-on-ones. But there are moments, and I think it's just the spirit inside of you will call that moment out, and you're like, "This is it." I think prayer is probably the most powerful thing that I've experienced just in my office. Is just like, "Can I pray with you right now about that?" And there is nothing that will change a room faster than prayer. And so there's just this power. People going through horrible stuff, death, divorce, like hit the big list on the ugly scale. And when you can sit there and partner with them, whether they all want prayer. You know what I'm saying? Very few people will refuse a prayer, and you just pray with them, and it shifts for them, and it brings, as we know, it just brings life.
Drew, what do you have to say? Like, so you worked in this environment for a really long time. Like, what did it look like? I mean, like, really practically, salt and light to people. You smiling at something?
I'm smiling because there's two people that used to work for me that go to the church here. So, I was like, you want to answer this?
Like, how do you model a laid down life?
I think you love people wholeheartedly, whether they believe with what you believe or not. You know, and I was the director of the Springfield, Missouri, the T-Mobile call center here from 2015 to 2021. So I had 800 employees, and the company is as not godly as you can imagine in their leadership. But you know, so I don't know. To me, I think you love people sincerely. And I think the way that you work, the way that you serve people, it does say something, you know. And I was in a position where I would have gotten fired had I stood up on a chair and said, Jesus saves. I'd have been gone the next day. You know what I mean? Like, you just can't do that where I was at. And so I didn't really have the ability, because of the position I was in, I had to be very vanilla. And who I vote for, what I think, all those things, I had to be everything to everyone for the sake of the good of the organization. And I was hired to be a leader for that company. And so there's also a level of, hey, I'm going to do my job well, which is to lead this team to get these results. You know, and along the way, I'm going to love them as much as I can. And so to me, it was like, you just love people wholeheartedly. And I had a lot of people in my office. They'd be like, well, I want to talk to you about this. I would just ask, why do you want to talk to me about it? Yeah. And almost every time it was like, well, I know you're like, you know. I'm like, what? Yeah. They're like, so it'd be like, you know, or they would just, you know, I would just like, I'm like one of those, you're like one of those like God people, you know, because it was like probably the least godly working place in America, in Springfield. I don't know. It's like the Bible Belt, but it didn't feel like it when you clocked in every day. I don't know. And so I would get them to, because of the position I was in, this is very practical. I would get them to say, you're a Christian. I would get them to say, I want to know what you think. And I would get them to say, I want to know what you think as a Christian about the situation. Yeah. Doors wide open. Now all of a sudden it's fair game, you know. And from that point, I mean, I did pray with people in my office, but it would be like my office was in the middle of everything. It would be like the eyes wide open, looking at them prayer, not the like, you know what I'm saying? Like, because it was one of those things where I still needed the large majority of my workplace that vehemently disagreed with my faith and my stance on life and God. I needed them to be able to follow me into the mission of what we were doing. And so because things are so polarizing, it was like, you know, and maybe some people are like, well, you need to be strong in the workplace, Drew. That was just my approach. And, you know, I saw a lot of people in my workplace get saved, which was cool, you know? And so it was, I think you love people and you work hard. You cannot be a bad example of your work ethic in the workplace, then expect people to respect you with what you believe. I don't respect people that don't work hard. Sorry. I don't take money advice from broke people. You know what I mean? Like, I'm sorry. Like, so when you know what I'm saying? None of you do. Don't judge me. Come on.
He just rebuked all of you.
Yeah. Well, they were rebuking me. I could feel it.
They're like, this guy, ooh, he's so mean.
I love this voice you go into.
Yeah. It's my inner talk voice. No, but I think it's like, you know, I want to be a respectable person in the marketplace. So people are like, man, that guy hustles. Like and so they'll listen to you even if they don't agree with you. You know, and I think you earn credibility. Like I was saying earlier, like favor with man comes from faithfulness from you. And when you're faithful, people will respect you, and it gives you a great inroad into their life. They look at you in a way where, like, hey, I look up to that person. I'm interested in what they think. But it's work ethic. It is working hard.
That's, I think, if I can add to that, I think it's, the good word is like stewardship, and just stewarding your whole life, right? I think we're talking a lot about work in general, but, we talk about that assignment piece. Stewarding your time and your finances and your work and your family and all of those things, being able to manage those things well, I think that is a godly representation. People notice that. Absolutely. You know, I have this thing that I try my best to do. I don't always pull it off, but I want to be 100% wherever I am. That is like my mantra, is like, when I'm at work, I'm all in at work. When I'm at home, I'm all in at home. And those two, not everybody has the luxury of those two things cutting off at one end or the other, but I want to be a dad when I'm a dad. I want to be a husband when I'm a husband. And when I'm an employee, I want to be an employee to the best of my ability, so that I can, because if you want to get really practical, if you don't rest while you're away from work, you are going to be tired when you come back to work. You're going to work at 80%. And then you're going to be tired. You're going to get 80% of your work done for that day, and you're going to feel behind. Then you're going to go home stressed, and you're not going to be a good dad, wife, mom. You guys hear what I'm saying? And then you go back to work the next day. You're tired because you didn't rest, because you were half in. You were still kind of at work. You worked a pseudo 14-hour day because you kept checking your emails until 10 p.m. at night, and you didn't check out. You didn't actually rest. There's a lot of like work-life balance that I think that we can step into, where you can truly rest and have these rhythms, and step out and be a good husband, be a good person.
It's beautiful. I like rhythms and boundaries. It's good. Yes. I think like one thing, if we could maybe end on this. Where is the place for someone who, like, maybe we're sitting here and we're saying, like, okay, like, great, like, risk, laying down your life, being a good example, being a good, like, employee, showing up, like, all these other things. Like, where's step one? Like, maybe I'm thinking, sitting here thinking, like, I feel as if, like, I got too wrapped up in my assignment. And it's become really my purpose in life. And I've drawn too much worth from that. How do we keep the purpose and coming back to the laid down life and abiding in Him? How do we keep that as true north? What's the first step? What's this first, like, what would you say to somebody who's like, I got to get this back?
I think if you focus just on goals and outcomes, so I'm going to achieve this, I'm going to get that, I'm going to get this dollar amount, this salary, this whatever, I want to get my kid into this school, or get, like we do things as parents, like, oh, my kid had this report card, so I'll feel like a better parent. Like, it's not your report card, it's theirs. We just do things where we're trying to chase outcomes, and I think that's where you can get confused, where you're like, I'm just trying to get these goals, and we stop knowing why we're chasing those goals. And I think that's the ladder against the wrong wall principle. I think to where you start is an identity. If I focus on identity, who has God made me? Who has God called me? And that starts for all of us with I'm a child of God before I'm an employee. I'm a child of God before I'm even a dad. Like I'm a child of God, and it's like, what has he called me? Who has he called me to be? Yeah. And then what would that version of me set as a goal? You know what I mean? So instead of saying like, if God's called me this season to double down on fatherhood for my kids, I got to say that my goals now have to be not what does Drew want to do, what does Drew feel like doing, what does Drew want to accomplish with his life. It's no, what would Drew, a great father, do? You know, so my identity is found in him. Okay, then if I focus on identity and then I set the goals and outcomes I want to go achieve. But if you haven't settled identity in your heart between you and the Lord, and that comes from like the secret place with God, if you haven't settled in your heart who you are and the love of God, then you'll start chasing the wrong outcomes and goals. And even when you achieve them, you'll still be empty. But if you find identity in Christ, identity in the Holy Spirit, this is who I am as a child of God, then your outcomes become a lot clearer and you're more comfortable chasing the right things in life. Yeah. So identity before outcomes.
Stop goes. I think they really did mute you.
No, I turned it off.
Yeah, no.
I was trying to restrain myself. Yeah, no, I love what Drew said. I mean, I think just, so much of our, discontentment and our discomfort in life is misplaced and mistaken identity. And so when you have that solidified and understand really who you are, you don't view this as like, it's not like, God, why am I in this position? It's this. It's you're changing your approach to the conversation between you and the Father from God, why, or God, asking God to saying, oh, God, thank you. Thank you for loving me.
Yeah.
Thank you for choosing me.
Yeah.
Thank you for this home. Thank you for the ability to provide.
Yeah.
And just watch as the outcomes and the environment around you changes as you just change that posture from a thankfulness, a gratefulness, from a place of just like, I don't understand my purpose. I don't understand this. It's like, you know what? Just be thankful and grateful for where you are, for who you are, for whose you are. Yeah. And just go from there. Just try stuff. I told Sarah this on the way here. I want to say, I think I said it in the back room, but we underestimate the gift of free will that God gives us. Listen, if you want to learn how to ride a motorcycle, go ride a motorcycle. If you want to go start a business, check it out. If you fail, who cares? You're going to learn so much along the way. Do it. Yeah. If you want to go back to school when you're 65 years old, go back to school. Just go do it. Learn something.
Yeah.
Learn more about who you are, but don't become so fixated on the object and like accomplishing and the product or whatever. Like just journey with God along the way and be like, all right, God, what do you have for me today? I feel like so much God's like, I got so much for you. Like just come along with me. Just come journey with me. Come apprentice with me.
Yeah.
I think the other piece of that is just if it feels overwhelming when you're sitting with that question, what is my purpose? What is my assignment? God, I don't know what my purpose is. I don't know what my assignment is. And I would just say this. God created you to glorify him. When you know your identity in him, you can rest in him. And when you rest in him, there's this place of abiding. And so when you sit with the Father and you're truly abiding looks like this. I'm not striving to actually try to figure that out because I'm at peace with my Father. And just spending that time with you, Father, it actually is going to come pretty quick what the next steps are going to be. I promise you.
Beautiful. Thanks so much, guys. Will you guys give them a round of applause and say thank you for them? Good. That was helpful. Yeah, you guys could leave. I don't know. Yeah. Hey, will you guys stand up with me? We're going to dismiss really quickly. I just want to pray. I want to pray over us. I think as we were just like in that panel and we were having a few of those conversations and I was listening, I think that there are things in our life that the Lord is solidifying right now. Purposes, positions, places. And all of this has to come from a laid down life. All of this has to come with us being on our knees before the Lord and saying, God, what do you have for me? Whether that is in the marketplace or whether that is a mom saying, like, my assignment right now is to stay home and raise sons and daughters that will be world changers. where we may not see the fruit today, but yet there will be a generational fruit to come. And so I just feel that for right now. I just want to bless all the mothers in the room today, that like your assignment in this season is not anything less. It is not anything less than what you heard these people up here talk. Like, if anything, like there will be a harvest in generations to come because of your intentionality in this season. Yeah, you close your eyes. Jesus, Father, we just thank you so much. I thank you, Father, that you are a good God, and that you have placed God-sized dreams and visions and assignments to fulfill. Father, but I pray that as every single person in this room, that it has not come from a place of striving, but it comes from a place of rest. It comes from a place of abiding. It comes from a place of pouring my oil out on your feet. It comes only through worship. And through the act of abiding, my assignment becomes clearer and clearer in the seasons. So, Father, I just pray that you would strengthen. I would pray, Father, that you would maybe help us rediscover where there needs to be a shift. And, Father, even more importantly, I pray that we would see through the eyes of heaven every single person we come in contact with on a regular basis, that there is no accident in the kingdom of God. That person you sit next to and work day in and day out, there is a calling of the Lord on that person's life. And maybe, just maybe, you are the salt, that you are the light, so that God may be glorified. In Jesus' name, amen. Amen. Guys, thank you so much for being with us. I hope you guys have a blessed Wednesday. We'll see you here on Sunday.